chapter 15. Steph and Shelley. John chapter 15. Look at the first 5 verses of the chapter with me. Jesus said, I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, that it may bring forth more fruit. Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Abide in me, and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine. No more can ye, except ye abide in me. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me ye can do nothing. And I focus in on that little 2 words at the end of verse number 5, without me. Jesus says, without him, we can do nothing. Without him. He tells 11 grown men, without me, you can do nothing. And then he has it pinned down in his holy book, the Word of God, for everybody else throughout all generations, for us to face the fact, without him, we can do nothing. You say, why would that be? We need him because we are sinners. We need him because, particularly it says without him, because he is the only Savior. Without him. Jesus pictures himself as the vine, that he's the true vine. Really it's saying that he's the root and you're just the offshoot. We're the branches. But we cannot survive without him unless we're connected to him. Like a branch of a grapevine would be connected to the vine. You have to get connected to the root, to the source of nutrient and water and life-giving stuff. Otherwise, you're just dry and dead, like a branch that's disconnected. Without him, you can do nothing. So Jesus says, he's the key this morning to unlock the door. He's the answer to your problems. He's the life-giving source for your deadness. He's the one you must get connected to for you to be able or to be enabled to do what you were created to be and do. He's the one. He's not only the one, he's the powerful one. That is to say, with him you can do anything and everything that God intends for you to do and be. He states that he adopts to himself that I am term. I am the true vine, verse number 1 said. I am the true vine. You do know that he's adopting Old Testament name of God. When he uses it, and John in particular uses them over and over and over and over again. I'm the door, I'm the way, I am the truth, I am the life, I'm the good shepherd. I am he. I am, and he goes on with all these I ams. I am the true vine. What's he saying? He's adopting that Old Testament name in Exodus chapter 3 where God, what name should we tell them, Moses said, that sent me? And he said, tell them that the I am sent you. Well, Jesus is the I am. You say, does he have power to do what I need in my life? Certainly he does, because he's God the Son. And he's claiming such right here in this passage. I'm God. And I like also that when you think about the I am, you think about him as one who is present. I'm glad he was for Moses. I'm glad he shall be one of these days when he returns. But I'm glad he's I am in the very present this morning for you. I am. Present tense God. You say, well, Jesus came to earth 2,000 years ago. Oh, no, but he's still here. He said he was, and he is. And he can do for you what you can't do for yourself. He's the great I am. The tragedy is that people try to go through life without him. Without him. Remember before you met him, child of God? I was lonely. Had a whole world around me. But I was lonely. I was guilty. Remember, without him, it's good for you to think about it. Without him, all the things I used to say. And the things I used to do. The Bible describes those who are without him as being lost. And the first thing that comes to mind in my thinking is directionless. That describes me before I was saved. Oh, what direction do I go? The world said go this way, and I was going. And then the hippie movement said, rebel against whatever the world's saying. And I'm going that way. Right? And just this authority said something, and somebody else said something, and a teacher said something, and a rock star said something, and this person said something, and another. And I was just jumping from one thing to another, directionless. Lost. Without him. It's a general statement for everybody. Without him, you can do nothing. I know there's a whole world. There's a bunch of folks. There's a bunch of billionaires, and I'm glad we're all here this morning. They're a bunch of billionaires. They would claim, oh, I'm a self-made man. You don't understand how I've done this, that, something else, and here I am, look at me, and look what I've done. Well, let me tell you, that billionaire might have a billion in the bank and all that business, but he or she needs to stop and recognize that Daniel 5 says, God's the God who holds his breath in God's hand. In God's hand. Daniel 5. You know what that means? You can't breathe this morning if he didn't let you. That sort of takes away my bragging rights, doesn't it? I couldn't even breathe. My heart wouldn't tick. It couldn't go another time if it weren't for him. Do you know that I would not have any rational thinking? I know you're thinking already, well, I don't think you do anyway, but I couldn't have rational thinking this morning if he didn't enable me. We've gone years ago and sang at the state hospital. And was it Dix Hall, Diana? Oh, it's just, oh, so tragic. So tragic. You've never seen anything like it. And if God didn't somehow give you mental capability, you would be in Dix Hall. Right? Without him, you can do nothing, he said. All right, that's all introduction. I want to look at 4 simple thoughts, okay? 4 brief thoughts that I find out of this passage. Some things that you can only gain through him. First, verse number 6. Without him, you cannot escape the fire. Look at verse 6. What's it say? If any man abide not in me, that is, if he's not in Christ, that is, if you're not saved. It said, then the ultimate end, what is it? It said, it uses a picture, grapevine picture, the branches are broke off and all. It said, what do men do? They take them and cast them into the fire and they're burnt. What's that say? Well, I would suggest this morning that it suggests where people are going who are without him. Without him. You say, well, I just don't believe in it. Well, don't believe in heaven either, because Jesus spoke as much or more about hell as he did about heaven. You can't just pick and choose. Jesus is going to say one of these days, depart from me, I never knew you. And they're going to go away into everlasting punishment. There is a judgment. Why? Because people will not turn. They won't repent. They won't turn from their sins. People, not only is there unrepentant, but unbelieving. See, unbelief is a big sin. I won't trust what Jesus did for me. He went to the cross and died for me, yes, so I could be forgiven of sins and go to heaven and be right with God and get fixed in my conscience and my soul. And yet what happens? People say, nope, not interested. I don't believe that or don't want to believe that. You know what's going to happen one of these days? God's going to give them what they want. They don't want to believe, so God's going to go ahead and give them what they want, and that is separation from him forever into everlasting punishment, we're told. Without him, you cannot escape the fire. You can't do it. There's a world that thinks they don't need God. And refuse to believe what Jesus said about it. Old writer Thomas Brooks, the damned in hell may weep their eyes out of their heads, but they can never weep sin out of their souls. Think about it. To illustrate, think about if you were in a 5th-story building on the 5th floor, and there's firemen who've trained and They've brought the ladder up to your window, and there you are. Smoke is beginning to belch up into that 5th floor. The place is on fire, and the smokes come up, and they come to the window and they say, "Hey, hey, hey! Come here. Oh, and there are people that say, "Oh no, I'm going to try to take the stairs. I got this. I can do it. I can handle this." How silly. How silly to refuse somebody who's right there to save you and get you out of the fire of God's wrath. And yet people say, "No, not interested. I'll do it my way." Or, "I just don't want it. I don't need you." That's what people are saying to the Lord Jesus this morning. Over and over again. "I don't need you." It's irrational. Doesn't make sense. The Son of God's made a way. You can get in His arms and He'll carry you where you need to safety. And yet people, the tragedy as well is people aren't even concerned about it. Not stirred about it, not troubled about it. Thank God when people get under conviction and can't sleep at night because they're so tore up about their sin before God. May God grant it again in hearts and lives. Without Him, you cannot escape the fire. Second truth I see here is that without Him, you can't experience forgiveness. Look at verse number 3. "Now ye are clean." You are clean. You can get clean before God. You can get clean in your conscience and in your soul. How? Hebrews 9 tells us, "How much more shall the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered Himself without spot to God, purge." That's the same word here as is mentioned for clean. He purge, clean your conscience from dead works to serve the living God. It's the blood of Christ that purges, we're told here. It's what Jesus did. He's got the capacity to wash you. He's got the capacity to cleanse us. He's got the capacity. Without Him, you can't get clean. Without Him, you can't get forgiven of your sins. You can't get clean. And primarily we're talking about being clean before God. And I'm glad to announce that it's an imputed righteousness that God's provided for us. You say, "Well, I can never match up and get clean enough. I try to wash myself." No, that's not how it works. You come just as dirty as dirt can be, and you trust the one who died for you, took the judgment for you, and the one who is sinless can now make you righteous in God's sight, clean in God's sight. Revelation chapter 19, listen to this verse. It describes the saved, and it says, "To her was granted," that is the Lamb's wife, "to her was granted," that's the saved, "they should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. For the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints." Those that are saved are counted clean, white in the sight of God. Right? And it's a gift of righteousness, Romans 5 says. It's a gift. God's got it for us. God can count you absolutely right and clean in His sight, sins forgiven in His sight, no longer against you. But you'll never get it. You'll never get forgiven without Him. You'll have to have Him. You'll have to come to Him. Clean. A filthy sinner, cleansed before God. Thirdly, I find here, without Him, you cannot exhibit fruit. That's really what all this story is about. This 15th chapter is talking about producing spiritual fruit in your life. We're given 3 levels of fruit here in verse number 2 and in verse number 8. There are 3 descriptions of fruit in verse number 2, and then there's one more in verse number 8. In verse number 2, there are those who are not bearing fruit. One who does not have any fruit, spiritual fruit, in their lives. That's one category, right? No spiritual fruit. Then there's also in verse 2, one who has fruit. And there's one who has more fruit in verse 2. That's a third category. And then there's a fourth category, verse 8, much fruit. So there's 4 different categories of fruit bearing. And all of us find ourselves in one of those 4, right? At any given time in life. I should say, I do need to say, and I don't believe that this fruit, I know that I hear a lot of preaching, it's all about soul winning. I just don't believe that that's what it's talking about. It's not to say that it wouldn't be involved, witnessing wouldn't be involved in fruit bearing. But you say, how so? Why would you say that? Well, I would say, first of all, just a prime example in Bible would be Noah. Noah is a man who didn't have but a handful out of all the population of the planet. Never one, but a handful. And yet, here's a man who was full of fruit, spiritual fruit in his life. All of his life. We can find one fumble in his life. But largely, his life is marked by spiritual fruit. Obeying God, pleasing God, living right character before God, fellowship, walking with God, being used of God to do what God told him to do. That's really what fruit primarily is. It is what we would say, Galatians 5, the fruit of the Spirit. The kingdom of God, Romans 14, is righteousness and peace and joy in the Holy Ghost. There's the fruit. You say, what kind of fruit do you need? What would be much fruit in my life? I'll tell you what much fruit would be in my life. Galatians chapter 5, verse 22. Long suffering. Just being able to put up with stuff. You know what I find out? The older you get, I think, I don't know, it might revert sometimes, but the older you get, you just get to the place you go, Lord, I'm going to talk to you about this, and you'll just have to work things out because I can't get stuff. But when you're young, you know what you do? You try to fix it all. I can get this. I'll take care of it. We'll get this straight. I can produce this in my life. Long suffering, patience with my wife. I'm much better. Stand up and testify a minute. No. I'm telling you. It's true. Yeah, this helps. Now we just got grandkids to fight over. Fruit. We need to bear fruit. We need to be more like Jesus. And you know what? Without him, you can't. You can't be more like him. I do note there in all that fruit bearing that in verse number 8, that this fruit bearing is not so that people can brag on us. It's not so people can brag on, oh, you're super duper spiritual something, It says, verse 8, herein is the Father glorified. Fruit is for God's glory. God will work it so that he gets the praise and people go, what a God. And it's not hard to do. You take an old ex-dope addict like me and they look and they go, well, he's got a long ways to go, but he sure has come a little ways. He's sure better than where he was, right? Yeah. Not perfection at all, but certainly something's happened. And he says that he got him. Now he's no longer without him, but he's with him. Next truth. Final. Without him, you cannot endure faithfully. Look, verse 9 and 10. There's two words here. There's the word continue. Verse 9. As the Father hath loved me, so have I loved you. Continue ye in my love. Verse 10, then you find the other word. It says, and if you keep my commandments, you shall abide. Abide. Continue. And abide. You have to have him. We must have him to be able to endure faithfully. Right? To be able to continue to do right, to be able to stay in spiritual realm, or we would say spirit-filled in our lives, to continue. How do you do it? By Jesus. We have to have him. We must continue and abide. Why? Because there are battles to fight. Without him, you can't fight the battles. The battles are real. Child of God, we could read verse 18 through 21 of the chapter, and you're going to find the battles are real. We're told there that the world hates you. Jesus said, if it hates me, it hates you. Don't be surprised about it. They hate the things of God, the ways of God. We talked about it Wednesday night, went through a whole spill of stuff displaying how that we're in a world that hates God's truth and God's Son. Even though many of them profess to know him. And they don't. They don't know his truth. They're not abiding by his truth. They're not continuing in his truth. And so what happens? Then a Christian becomes the target because you're the cog in the wheel, preventing a world that doesn't want God, preventing them. Why you always got to try to put some kind of wall up whenever we're trying to do something? We're trying to transgender. Just get on board with it. Right? And if you don't, well, you become the target. I say leave my grandkids and leave our church kids, leave us alone. They're going to be taught that men are men, women are women, boys are boys, girls are girls, biologically from birth, and there's no transgendering. Unless you decide that you're going to be in rebellion against God. The battles are real. The world hates God's word. And then we're just talking about how are you going to endure faithfully? How will you endure faithfully? You still have carnal nature about you. 1 John is a peculiar book because the time when it says if you're born again, then you don't abide in sin, right? Continue in sin. You don't sin. It's not the continuing practice of your life. But a lot of people take that passage, they don't watch out, and they'll say, well, you quit sinning. That's not true, because the first chapter and the 8th verse said, if a man says he doesn't sin, he's a liar. You're a liar. The truth, the reality of the matter is, all of us are, your standard for what's right must be real low. Because if you look at God's standard for what's right, it gets beyond just outward surface stuff. It gets down to the motive of the heart and attitude and all kinds of things. And all of us, put us all in a pot, we all still trying to get where we need to be, and we're not there. Thank God salvation's a gift. Right? So, how are you going to make it? I'm going to come to Him every day, confessing what our text just told us. Lord, without you, I can do nothing good today. Lord, without you, I will not be a wise man today. Without you, I will utterly fail. And I will be a pitiful testimony before an unsaved world. Without you, I need you. But you know what? A verse comes to mind. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things that God wants me to do through Christ, which strengtheneth me. Which tells me, without Him I can do nothing, but with Him I can. So you need to get Him. You need to come to Him. We need to trust Him. Surrender to Him. Without Him, you cannot escape the fire. There is a judgment coming. Without Him, you can't experience forgiveness. Without Him, you can't exhibit fruit. And without Him, you cannot endure faithfully. Let's stand this morning. Miss Brenda's going to come, and she's going to sing that song that goes along. Where are you at this morning? What about your heart this morning? Do you have Him? Is He with you? Have you trusted Him?
Without Him I could do nothing. Without Him I'd surely fail. Without Him I would be drifting like a ship without a sail. Jesus, oh Jesus, do you know Him today? You can't turn Him away. Oh Jesus, oh Jesus, without Him how lost I would be. Without Him I could be dying. Without Him I'd be enslaved. Without Him life would be hopeless. But with Jesus, thank God, I'm saved. Jesus, oh Jesus,
with Him there's forgiveness.
Do you know Him today? You can't turn Him away. Oh Jesus,
only with Him.
Oh Jesus, without Him how lost I would be.
Continue.
Without Him I could do nothing. Without Him I'd surely fail. Without Him I would be drifting like a ship without a sail. Jesus, oh Jesus, do you know Him today? You can't turn
Somebody in the
Him
building this morning,
away. Oh Jesus, oh Jesus, without Him how lost I would be. Without Him I could be dying. Without Him I'd be
Lord, I do want to go to heaven. I don't want to go to
enslaved.
hell.
Without Him life would be
Lord,
hopeless.
I do want to have your fruit in my
But
life.
with Jesus, thank God, I'm saved. Jesus, oh Jesus, do you know Him today? You can't turn Him away. Oh Jesus, oh Jesus, without Him how lost I would be.
Gary, slowly dismiss us, please.
Lord, we do thank you for walking with us and talking with us, for being there. Lord, some preachers talked about this morning, without you, we can do nothing. Lord, we do pray for your help and your touch in our life. Lord, that daily that we would look to you, to walk with you, to be closer to you. Lord, and not lean upon our own self-desire and self-ability, but Lord, lean upon you. Lord, thank you for your love for us.
Yes.
Blessings on us. We do ask that you just help us take this message and think about it the rest of this day. In Christ's name we ask it.
Amen. Thank you, Miss Brenda.